Hi, this is 50/50, real estate podcast for the common man, where we talk about selling, buying, and investing in real estate. We aren't baffling you with BS. We're dazzling you with brilliance. We're not telling you how to become a millionaire. We're telling you stories, the truth, and the information no one is talking about. So sit back, listen, laugh, and enjoy 50/50, real estate podcast for the common man.
Hey everybody, this is JD. I hope you're looking good and feeling fine. Hopefully you had a great weekend, gearing up for spring. I love this type of weather. Everybody's, starts getting out. Birds are chirping in the morning. I love to hear the birds. Hiking, biking, people walking their dogs, starting to work on their yards, and just all kinds of things. Weather's starting to get real nice. So it's just a great time. I always like the spring, kind of all the flowers starting to bloom and grasses are starting to kind of green up a little bit. And you just see a lot of people out and, doing things and so on and so forth. It's just a great time of year. I was talking about real estate for my past clients and friends and so on. We're just chatting about the market and kind of how crazy it is and kind of what's happening. They listen to my podcast and kind of enjoy it and so on. But a few of them said, JD, you were so good finding investment properties for us. Why don't you just talk to people about the good and bad and the ugly about investing? Because when you sat down to us, you were just, gave us so many facts we never really considered, and it really, really helped us make a decision in investing, and you never hear that anymore. And I said, yeah, and they said, yeah, these podcasts, get rich quick, we're going to try and make millions of dollars from real estate, and all these clients, oh yeah, I made $80,000 in one weekend fixing and flipping properties, and these yahoos on YouTube saying, yeah, we're going to show you how to make big money in investing in real estate. And half of these guys are kind of jokes, and they, just smoke and mirrors and so on. And I said, yeah, you're right. I listen to them and I just shake my head at how, misleading these guys are. They just give you a bunch of fluff. They never really tell you what's going on. So, a lot of them just said, why don't you just do a podcast on just, the good and bad, the ugly about investing in real estate. So I said, yeah, I'm going to do that. So this podcast is going to be something you probably don't hear in other real estate podcasts. And if you are an investor and you've been doing it for a while, you're probably going to shake your head and go, JD is so right on. If you are thinking about getting into real estate investors, this is going to be a big wake-up call for you, maybe prevent you from making some bad decisions in real estate. When I look back, after I talked to these guys, I look back at kind of the history of me selling real estate, and I realized back, a while ago, I was just knocking out of the park. I was selling so many investors, and one investor would tell another investor and tell another investor about me. Not saying I'm the best thing since sliced bread, but I'd tell them the truth and what's going on, show them how to analyze investment properties. I realized 80% of my business was investors, and I look back and I realized why I was working with so many investors, because none of the real estate agents wanted to work with them. They thought they were too hard or too unrealistic or so on and so forth. And, at first I started out and I was just going through some major frustration, major brain damage on these people that just had no clue what they were doing. But after a while, when I got really experienced, boy, I just knew what I was doing and finding the deals and helping them make the money and so on. But I was refusing a lot of people because when I first got into dealing with investors, boy, they were late nighters, total late nighters. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, old guys, old school people know what I'm talking about. Is back then, and maybe even today, if you up all night. You get these late night. Come to our seminars. We're going to show you how to get rich quick in real estate. Buy our programs and our videos and, our DVDs. And we're going to show you how to make millions in real estate, and so on and so forth. And they're those kinds of people, and I look and I see them on YouTube. I see them podcasting, and a lot of these guys are young kids that, rent out a house for a day, or maybe don't even rent them out. They just kind of film in front of the house, or rent a Lamborghini out for a day, or maybe even go to a dealership and say, hey, I want to test drive one, and then they park it in front of a house, or they park it and film in front of it and make you think they're making millions. These guys can't buy a taco at Taco Bell. So, I thought, okay, I'm going to lay it straight. I'm going to do a podcast that really gives you the good, the bad, and the ugly about investing. And late nighters, like you said, they sit back and, they always trying to find some angle, and they're like, you got no job? Hey, come to my seminar. You don't got no down payment, no credit? Come to our seminar. And, they come in and they teach these people, how to make money in real estate. It's like 1,000,000 to one shot, and they charge thousands and thousands of dollars for information. Probably Google it or get it at a library, and 90% of it is junk. They don't never ever work, and these people waste their money and so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, I look back at a lot of these late nighters that these real estate gurus, they all were arrested and thrown in jail and fined for misleading and fraudulent, information and so on and so forth. It was a total joke. And they still are out there, and you can always tell late nighters. Matter of fact, I can always tell late nighters are these investor people who think they're going to make it rich in real estate, because a lot of them buy homes as business names or LLCs. They say in these classes, get an LLC, limited liability company, or create a business name and so on. Don't buy it in your own name, and so on and so forth. Buy it under a company name. So a lot of these people don't use their own names. Some of them do, because they just don't want to go through all that circus, so they just use their own name. But you can tell the minute they submit the offers how that they've been to a seminar, and I can spot them a mile away. Matter of fact, years and years ago, when I was dealing with a lot of investors, almost everybody was investors. I got a name for myself through the kind of the investment groups and so on, and I was just dealing with a lot of them. And one of those late night guys had lunch with me, and we were just talking. And it was just interesting. He was telling me kind of the circuit that he was doing and so on and so forth. And I found it kind of intriguing, and he had some good things about investing and so on. But a lot of it, I just shook my head and went, God, are you pitching this to people and making this amount of money? Boy, if they ever catch you, man, you're going to end up in jail. And I don't know if the guy ever did or not, but most of those people ended up in jail or fined or closed down and so on. But he invited me behind the scenes. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And he was, going at a hotel in a small little ballroom. And I showed up, and there was a lobby, and the lobby actually was pretty big, and the doors were closed to the ballroom. And there was probably 100 people in the lobby, and they were signing in and having coffee and Coca-Cola and some hors d'oeuvres, and just everybody was kind of chatting with each other. And I went kind of through the door and behind the scenes and so on, and I couldn't find the guy. He was really busy and so on. but he gave me like a little pass to go in the back. And I was talking to some people and so on and so forth, just seeing, they follow the guy around and so on and so forth, and they were kind of his trainers and so on and so forth. And, they would sell and get a commission if they sold seminars and so on. So it was really kind of interesting. I love behind the scenes of anything. I mean, in a movie, like when they make a movie, they should make a movie of how to make a movie, and the techniques behind making a movie, and green screen and special effects and the directing and the shooting. I love behind the scenes of that. So I really enjoyed behind the scenes of this. But it was just, I don't know, kind of unethical, some of the stuff they did. And I don't know if the guy wanted me to get involved in it. I never did. I just felt really uneasy. But I remember when I was kind of behind the scenes in this seminar, there was about 150 chairs that were set up. And like I said, it was a small little ballroom. And, I was just looking around, everybody setting up and so on and so forth. And just maybe about 15 minutes before the seminar began, one of the guys yelled out, "Hey, we need somebody to go count the people that are in the lobby." Guy went out, came back, and he said, about 100 people are out there. And the guy goes, "Okay, we have 150 chairs set up. I want you to take about 60, 70 chairs out and put them in the back." So I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, that leaves about 80 chairs left. There's 100 people. Maybe, not all 100 people are at the seminar. Maybe they're there for a different reason or so on. So they, took the chairs out, and seminar opened up, and, everybody rushed in, and there was about 10 to 15 people just mingling around. They didn't have chairs to sit on, and everybody else was sitting in chairs, and it looked pretty packed. And I went, wow, this is really interesting. I'm like, wow, what's going on? I said, something's up. They're up to some shenanigans. What are they doing? So the guy comes out, one of the hosts and so on. And he says, "Thank you guys for coming. This is going to be a great seminar." And so, wow, guys, there's people standing around. We're really sorry. Boy, we didn't expect this many people. It's going to be really successful seminar here, guys. We need to get some more chairs out. So they got more people to bring the chairs that they put in the back out. And I thought, that is, I don't know, that's the biggest scam I've ever seen, because they took the chairs away to make an illusion that more people showed up than what they thought. But in actuality, less people showed up than what they thought, because they had 150 chairs there and only 100 people showed up. And I figured, well, if they had the 150 chairs there and 100 people came up, it would look like, a lot of the place was empty and it wasn't all that successful. But to take the chairs away and then bring them back, it made it look as if the seminar was really, really successful and so many people were interested. And I don't know, it just kind of gave me a bad taste in my mouth. And I said, if they're doing this, what other shady things are they doing behind the scenes? So that was kind of really interesting. But that's kind of, the real estate investment behind the scenes that goes on. But, so many people, I get these real estate investors come in and say, "Yeah, JD, if you give me the right property, I can pay cash. I can close in a week. If you give me, I got partners, real estate investing partners that we got cash and we can close really quick." I'm like, oh, guy, please just throw me off a cliff. Not these guys again, because for rookie real estate agents, they don't have a clue. And I used to be one, and I got involved in these people. And, it was a total waste of my time. But hey, I didn't have anything to do. I was raising a family, starving, just got in real estate. So I had to grab everything I learned. But I learned a lot about, real estate investing and the do's and don'ts and what's legit and what's, late nighters and so on and so forth. And, the minute you see these people come in, I got cash, I can close really quick, just find me the right deal. I just, okay, thank you. I'll if something comes along my desk, I'll call you and, basically toss their name in the shredder because I know exactly, what the whole story is. And what it is a lot of these people, no job, no credit, no income, so on. They get in these seminars or these investment programs and so on and so forth. And these lenders say, which are what they call hard money lending. And when they say hard money lending, it's pretty much hard to get it. It's just private individuals who want to make a ton of money, investing. So instead of running around trying to find the deals, they just invest to people at just, way high interest rates, loan shark interest rates. Like in today's market, it might be 3%. They might do 8 or 10% investing and then charge you a ton of fees to get the loan and so on and so forth. Short term, 6 to maybe 12 months at the most. And if you don't pay them back, then there's all these fees and fines, or they foreclose on you and take the property. But when it comes to hard money lending, and in these, hey, you can get rich in real estate, you don't need no job and so on and so forth. Basically what it is, and it's a total joke. I can read it like, a book the minute I get these offers, and they have these LLCs or business names or so on. But the minute I see these offers that are 25% under market or 50% under market, I just throw them in the trash. I just tell my sellers, here's what the whole thing is, and like, John, just toss it. And what it is they're not lending the money to the person, they're lending the money on the deal. So like I said, that's why they say no job, no money, no credit, no thing. Hey, we'll loan you as long as the deal's right, or we'll use our money if you find the deal. It's just almost impossible, because let's just look at it. Let's just use kind of today's numbers. Let's say a house is worth $400,000. And these people think, yeah, they're just going to get a little paint, little carpet, little linoleum, and they're going to walk away in 2 months with $80,000 profit. It isn't going to happen. If it did, we all be multi-billionaires in the real estate industry, and we're not. And what that is like, let's say it's $400,000 and fixed up. Okay, so let's say fixed up. And let's say it just needs carpet, paint, linoleum. And let's say they're asking maybe $380, but fixed up it's worth $400. These people will lowball it and say, okay, it's worth $400,000. We want it 25% on the market, so we're going to offer you $100,000 less than what the house is worth. So we're going to give you an offer of $300,000. Well, look, if it just needed carpet, paint, and linoleum, the seller would carpet and paint linoleum and sell it for $400,000. He's discounted it at $380 because that's what it's need. He's not going to sell it to you for $100,000 less than what it's worth if he did the fix up. Even a bank. I mean, I've had banks that I've listed properties with, and they just laugh and go, JD, we would have fixed the house up ourselves and sold it for that. We're not going to hand the guy $80,000 just because he walks in and says, hey, I'm an investor, and boy, I can close within a week because I got cash. Partners, they'll do it. And no, that's, like I said, hard money lenders. And some of them, they want you to get the house 50% under what the market is. So if the house is fixed up at $400,000, they want you to offer $200,000 on it. It's a total joke. I the minute I see these things, I just laugh. And that's what late nighters are. And, there's so many of those investors that are out there, and they call us, yeah, we got investment. We're investors. We'll cut cash if the deal's right. And you ask them, well, how many homes have you invested in? Well, maybe 2. Well, how long have you been investing? 7 years. So you're telling me in 7 years you own about 2 properties? Yeah. Yeah, that's terrible. When I first began and I dealt with one of these guys, it was I thought I was I thought I was going to be a millionaire in a year, because he came to me. I was naive, starving, had no clue what I was doing, and he said, I want to put in some offers. I don't even want to see the properties. I want to put in these offers. So he put in, offers 25% below, 50% below what they were asking. And out of 5 offers, 2 of them were accepted. Now, the market was much worse than it is now. They were a lot of bank foreclosures and HUD foreclosures and so on and so forth. But I thought, holy smokes. And these were just private people that, they wanted out. So they took his offer and we closed, and I made a good commission, and he thought I was great. So he goes, I just want to put in more offers. So I said, great. I'm just going to put a template. I'm going to be a selling machine. Man, I'm just going to crank them out. Well, all of a sudden I got a template, and he put in 110 offers, and not one of them was accepted. Matter of fact, a lot of people that knew me called me up, and they were ticked off at me, wanted to know what I was doing, was, what kind of what I was involved in. I said, no, this is a legitimate buyer. He just wants discounts. And they just kind of said, John, don't even bother wasting our time with this stuff. And then I got a call from the real estate commission, who thought I was up to shenanigans, and they wanted to know what I was up. And I said, no, this is just an investor, and he has his program, and he wants to exercise his program, and so on. They just all advised me, the real estate commission, to let the guy go, because I was getting tons and tons of complaints. So after about 110 offers and all these complaints, I just dumped the guy, and I don't know whatever happened to him. But that's where I learned that all these hard money lenders, get rich quick investors, hey, we got cash, we'll buy a home right now if you find the right deal. It never works. A waste of. First of all, they're gullible investors, and I'm not putting them down, but they believe all this stuff because they just went to these seminars, these books, so they've watched these YouTube videos and so on, and they think they can do it. So I'm not blaming them, but geez. It's just like I said, they just waste their time, the real estate agent's time, everybody else's time, and then after about a year, they give up and go on to something else. And here's another thing that's really interesting that I tell people. A lot of times I meet with these people, and even sometimes seasonal investors that are just totally misled. Man, I don't know where they get this information. Like, yeah, we're going to do fix and flips, right? We're going to do fix and flips. And we're going to do 1031 exchanges on them. And we've done a couple of 1031 exchanges on fix and flips. I'm like, what? Who's telling you this? Like, oh, yeah, we got a couple of real estate agents that say we can do 1031 exchanges of flips and flips. And I'm like, oh, guy, if the real estate commission catches you, you're gonna get killed with fines and capital gains taxes. And like, what? And I'm like, did you even consult a tax attorney or a real estate investor or a tax consultant? And they're like, no. And I'm like, you can't do a 1031 exchange on a fix and flip. You're considered a dealer. You have to pay 20 to 30% capital gains depending on what your income is. You're considered a dealer. And they're like, what? I'm like, no. A 1031 exchange is when you rent a property maybe for 2 years. I think you have to rent it for 2 years, and then you just exchange it from one property to another. And that's another thing. A lot of times people say, well, if I have $1 million property and I've rented it out, I'm just using this as an example, then I got to buy $1 million or $2 million home if I do a 1031 exchange. No. Hey, if you sell your $1 million properties, you can buy 2 $500 properties or 4 $200,000 properties. Or a lot of times I had one person who sold a couple of investment properties, and he bought a body shop. A mechanic body shop, and so it's investing in real estate. He bought the building and the business. You can't just do a 1031 exchange and buy the business if you don't own the building. It's an it's real estate to real estate. So a lot of people don't know that, but you have to own the property for 2 years, and a lot of these people don't. And like I said, a lot of people say, well, if I owned a property for 2 years and, I just don't want to do a 1031 exchange, then, I don't know, man, it's just going to kill me in investing in capital gains. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to pay one way or another. So, I had a really great. It wasn't me, but it was one of my investors who had a great tax attorney who showed me how you convert investment properties into not paying any capital gains. And what he said is, you sell the property that you're in, and if you're married, you can make up to $500,000 without paying capital gains. So you sell your personal property, then you move into your rental property. You live there for 2 years, and that rental property becomes your personal property, and then you sell that. Make $500,000 profit if you're married, or $250,000 if you're single. Then you move into another rental property. You live in that for 2 years, and if you have 4 properties, then after a while, you got all this money that you send capital gains tax. You buy your dream home, that's your personal property, and you don't have to pay any capital gains tax. And I thought that was just brilliant, and so on and so forth. But you're gonna have to sell your personal property, move into your rental property, live there for 2 years, and then sell that. But if you after about 10-15 years, you buy a beautiful home, you saved all that money in capital gains, you buy a personal resident, and then you're sitting really pretty, and so on. But another thing that I see in investing is people over improving in the home. They think, oh man, they think that they get in a home, they get too emotional about it, and then they invest in the home, or they remodel the home as if they're going to live in it, and then they want all this money back. And it's like, no, people aren't going to give you all this money back on the home because you put carpet and paint, linoleum, and so on. It's great, but you just over improved. You didn't need to put all that, remodel the whole bathroom and spend $20,000 in a bathroom, or put a whole $20,000 within a patio, or so on and so forth. So I see I had one guy, God, years ago, I found him a great deal, a great fix and flip. I told him, here's what you need to do, and he just over improved it. And a lot of fluff, a lot of lipstick on a pig stuff. And then I got him like 7 offers, and he kept refusing. This was not in a really good market. I mean, a lot of people, if I would have brought him 7 offers, they would have kissed my feet, and this guy just refused them, and so on. And then finally he accepted one, and the roof was, needed a new roof. He refused to put a new roof on, and then that ended. Another one, a new roof. That ended. Another one, new roof. That ended. Finally, he made a deal with somebody who was a roofer who bought the home, and he didn't put a new roof on, but he discounted on it, and so on and so forth. But I learned a lot about investing, that if you're doing a fix and flip, look at the major stuff. Don't just fluff it and, hey, I'll put a little paint and cheap carpet and look wonderful when people come in. Because when they have an inspection, they're going to look at major stuff. I always tell investors, look at the roof, the furnace, the foundation. Those are the first things you should look at. And if you need a new roof, or you need a new furnace, water heater, negotiate with the seller. If you get a really good deal, and they say the seller isn't going to put a new roof in and so on, but he discounts it, then you're going to have to come out of your pocket to put a new roof or water heater, because you're not going to get around it. An inspector's going to see it, and you're going to have to do that. But so many people, they just, they try to hide things, and they think nobody's going to see them, and that's just more money in their pocket. And then when it comes to sell it, they have to put all this money out for new roof or water heater or furnace, and then all the profits just get eaten away, and they walk away. Like I said, it's really hard to walk away in an investment property with $50,000 or $60,000. Usually you're walking away with maybe 5 to 10 if you're lucky, which is a good, after a couple of months worth of work, that's good profits. But hey, I'm gonna buy a home and I want to walk away with $50,000 to $90,000, $100,000 afterwards. On an average, maybe $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 home, you're not gonna walk away with $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 in 2 months. If that was it, everybody real estate would be millionaires. It's not going to happen. But a lot of these people think that's what's going to happen, that they're just going to put some paint, carpet, linoleum, and walk away with $50,000 or $60,000. I always tell people, my investors, hey, look it. If it was that easy, don't you think the seller would just put carpet and paint, linoleum, and sell it for $50,000, $60,000 more? They just get, I don't know, it's just, they listen to all these videos and read all these crazy get rich in real estate or podcasts and all these that just all these smoke and mirrors and so on. So I always tell people, if you're planning on doing a fix and flip, this is my rule, and I came up with this, and all the investors who I've dealt with, say, JD, we love you, really helped us, got us focused. We didn't put more than the house was worth. We put just what it needed, and we made some decent money, and we appreciate it. So I always tell people, if you are going to sell the home for, say, $400,000, okay, and this is not what you buy it for. This is what you're going to sell it for. You should put no more into the house. This is not real estate commissions and closing costs and so on and so forth, and holding costs. So, because you are maybe going to have 3 or 4 or 5 months of holding costs. Okay, so you got to add that into the payments and, your profits and so on and so forth. This is just fix-up cost. This is my opinion, and it's helped tons of investors that I've dealt with. You should put no more than 5% into it. So what I mean is, if you're selling a home for $400,000, you should have no more than $20,000 into it. Carpet, paint, linoleum. If it needs a new furnace, if it needs a new roof, put $20,000 into it. But put $20,000 into it. If it needs a new roof, it's going to cost you $12,000. Then 12 of that 20 goes into a new roof. The rest goes into painting and fixing it up, and so on. And you do really well, but so many people don't. It needs this and that. I'm going to make it into a beautiful home, and then I'm going to jack up the price so much that I'll get that money back, and people aren't going to pay for all this. They're not going to pay more than the house is worth, no matter how much fluff you put in the home. So like I said, it's really interesting about dealing with investors, because so many people think, I'm just going to rent it. You get all these people, just buy a home and rent it and collect the check. It'll be great. Just collect the check. It'll be like an ATM machine. Yeah, just like, you won't have any maintenance. The people who are renting, they're going to pay you on time every single time. They're going to keep your house immaculate. They're going to shampoo your carpet and paint your walls. Hey, when your heater breaks and you have to pay $4,000 to buy a new heater or water heater, don't worry, your tenants will pay for that. All you need to do is collect a check. Just go out every month in your mailbox and collect it. And then these people rent homes, and they becomes a nightmare. It's like, I got this nightmare client. They look great. They look so wonderful. And then after about 5 months, they never paid payments, and I never got the rent. And then I couldn't pay my payment with the bank, and I was late with my bank, and they started wanting to foreclose. And then finally I had to evict them. And when I evicted them, they got really angry, and they kind of trashed out the place. And then I fixed the walls, and the doors were hanging, and the appliances were all beat up, and the garbage disposal needed to be fixed and the doors were hanging out and had to spend another $5,000 to $7,000 just fixing everything. But yeah, these people, I'll tell you, they say, oh, renting properties, oh, you make plenty of passive income renting properties and so on and so forth. And yeah, when you got an eviction, then people don't go out. Attorney's going to cost you $200 an hour to do a eviction filing. Then you have to go to court, and then and then when you're trying to go to court, the tenants move out in the middle of the night and trash your place, or take your stove and your refrigerate and sell that on the black market. And like I said, that. Oh, here's another one to wrap it up. I've just heard this, and I just have to look and go, please don't be gullible. These real estate agents that have no idea what they're doing. They get these gullible investors and they misquote what the rent is. I've seen it, and I've had to listen to a podcast, and this guy, they would explain how wonderful this great deal they got, and how the investor was going to make money on rent and get this positive cash flow. I'm like, oh, gee, are you kidding me? They just hosed the investor and misled him. But they got a great commission and so on and so forth. They went out and they sold this duplex, and they were making like the seller was making like $1,500 a unit. Okay, I think it was a duplex, and they sold it, and they sold this thing for like $1 million or so, and they convinced that the guy who bought it, or the investors who bought it, that they could raise the rent from $1,500 that this guy was renting. These people were great renters. He had them in for a long time, to twice as much, and that justified them paying $1 million. Well, I just went, oh, you kidding? There's only so much rent you can pay that the market's going to bear. You can't jack up the rents twice as much. These people are going to bail. You're going to be left no tenants, $1 million house. You don't have any income. Then you have to find, tenants that are willing to pay that, and it's a duplex, and usually duplexes and fourplexes, they're not in real upscale neighborhoods. They're kind of old 50, 60, 70 neighborhoods that you might get maybe $1,000, $1,300 a month for them. They're not going to be in like upscale, big time, really nice neighborhoods. And you got that misquoting to investors what the actual rents will be. And that's another thing that it is. And people say, well, yeah, but you got appraisers that should do that, because if you're buying investment properties, appraisals will do that. Well, it's kind of like I always tell people, what the rents they say you can get and what you really can get might be two different things. And then you're stuck with a house that's over mortgage, and you can't get rent that covers the rent, and then you're stuck with it. Now you have to dump it because it's just sucking you dry of all your savings and so on and so forth. So, but I've seen just that where people get, investors mislead what the house is worth, or mislead the people what they can actually rent. I've actually had investors that have talked to me and said, yeah, my real estate agent misquoted me, and I'm getting $200 less a month than what he quoted me, so I'm doing a negative cash flow. I'm kind of stuck here for a while, but I'll just raise the rent until I finally can break even, and then I'll probably just sell the place and get out from under it. But that I see that. So like I said, folks, I'm not trying to bear bad news. It's a lot of people who have made great money in real estate, but they're not, they don't these people have held these properties for 10, 20, 30 years, and then they become millionaires. They don't buy a property, hold it for 2 or 3 years, and then all of a sudden they're all millionaires and they can all retire and live their life all in, Tahiti on their yachts and go for vacations every month to different exotic places. They all invested in real estate for 3 or 4 years. It's long term. It's probably 10, 15, 20 years before you really make big money in real estate. But, listening to these seminars and these YouTube videos and these podcasts, all these people think, you just go out and just, invest for 5 years and then you can retire the rest of your life. Give me a break. If it was that easy, everybody be in real estate, everybody be retired, we all be millionaires. So like I said, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got a lot of information on kind of the dark side of investing in real estate, the good and the bad and the ugly, and I hope you really enjoyed it. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next Monday. Take care of yourself. Bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed the show, Real Estate for the Common Man. Please follow us or subscribe. Tell your friends, neighbors, relatives, and coworkers about us. We're on all your major podcast apps: Amazon, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. If you can't remember all that, just Google it, or have your friends Google Real Estate for the Common Man, and it will come up. Again, we thank you very much for your time, and hopefully you enjoyed the show. Hey, if you live in Colorado Springs and want to buy or sell a home, you can look us up at soldrealestatecompany.com, as in I sold a home. Again, thank you very much. Have a very good week, and we'll see you next Monday. Bye for now.